So I'll begin with a short Mangalacharan, a few mantras and invocations for us to open to grace and be present as much as we can in today's gathering, whether you can know some of them and you want to join or not. Yeah, let's try just to be present and open. At least for me, this Mangalacharan are, in one sense, is the most important part of the meeting, since it's an official moment of begging for grace to descend in our hearts, and or for us to be open to the grace that is already there, basically. And from that, the whole thing will depend, how open we are to that. Om Jnanatimidandasya Janam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namashrishnam Manumapi Satchiputram Matra Sarupam Rupam Tasyagrajamurupurim Mathurim Gostavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratitya Kripaya Sri Gurum Tam Natasmi Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nikhila Shruti Mole Ratnamala Dhyate Nirajita Padapankajanta Ajimukta Kulairupasyamanam Paritasram Harinam Samshrayami. Anarpitacharim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kaloho Shamarpaitamunnatojvalarasam Sabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundaradhyuti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaye Khandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksham Vishwambaro Dvyabaro Jugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suhridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastute. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadha Lakshaya Shiptashthakamaditarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Saranadavindam Brinde Namaste Saranadavindam. Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Bol. Can I ask you a glass of water, my Sangan also? Can I ask you some? Yeah, thank you.
Get the glass from your room?
Sorry?
Can I get the glass of your room?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good morning. Pranam, welcome. Sorry if my Mangalacharan is not the usual one you may know. I have a file with the mantras, so I can send them to you if you want just to follow along. You just remind me after the class, I may forget. Yeah, there's no one only way of doing it, so I know that sometimes it may be more familiar for some than for others. So, anyhow, very happy to be here again. And yesterday we had the more unofficial introduction to each other and sharing from a very deep, honest place. We were sharing a few thoughts about sadhu sangha and what we are supposed to be doing these days here together, exploring the reach the dimensions of sincerity and honesty and vulnerability and all that gets in the way of all that as well, right? So somehow, yeah, today we're officially beginning with a series of lectures that in many ways is connected to what we were talking yesterday. So I thought about naming them, as I think I told you yesterday, we gave a little appetizer last night about the meal that we want to share these days, which is, what is Anartha-nivritti really? Like sometimes we ask ourselves, how are you doing? And it may be casual and we say, everything's fine. How are you doing? Really? Oh, that invites for another conversation. Right? Another degree of depth and sincerity. So, yeah, what's Anartha-nivritti? We can all share the official definition in 2 words, but what is Anartha-nivritti really? So we'll be exploring that during the mornings, at least our mornings here in Austria, starting from today and for the next, I think, 5 days, if I'm not mistaken. And during the evenings, we'll have some days Q&A, as I like to call, quest and exploration. And some other days we will be having more private sharings, circle sharing like we did last night. Those won't be recorded or streamed, just in case, to keep some confidentiality with the group that is present. So what is Anartha-nivritti really? Again, Anartha-nivritti can be very generally described as, how will you describe Anartha-nivritti? Let's begin there. And there is no wrong answer. So it's just what you have heard, what you think in a few words. Again, I'm not putting you to test who is saying wrong, who is saying right. What comes to your mind if you hear Anartha-nivritti, Patrak?
Bad habits.
Bad habits. That's Anartha, but nivritti?
Getting rid of them.
Okay, getting rid of bad habits.
Being aware of them and getting rid of them.
Sorry?
Being aware of them and getting rid
Aware.
of them.
Yeah, being aware of them and getting away from, getting rid of them. That's a good one, right? Something else? I mean,
I would say it's obstacles which hinders us for real love.
yeah. Yeah, we may be saying similar thing from different ways, but generally that's the idea.
Obstacles that hinder us to be ourselves,
Yeah,
our real selves.
yeah. Okay. This reminds me one book, I don't know if you're familiar with that, written by Purnachandra Swami, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, called Unspoken Obstacles to the Path of Bhakti. Interesting also. It's another way again of speaking about Anartha-nivritti.
It's a process which we face on our way to pure bhakti, and which can last actually all the
Some
way
time.
through.
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate what Anna said. No, that Anartha-nivritti is a process, because also sometimes we, as you may know, of course, Anartha-nivritti generally comes in this list, 9 stages that Rupa Goswami gives: Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha-nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prem. No? Again, to summarize in 9, it's not that you just go through 9 chapters in your spiritual journey. There are endless. In between each one, there are endless. But it's a way of summarizing the journey. And sometimes what I've heard in connection to what Anna said, we think, okay, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, we'll go there in a minute also. Bhajana Kriya, so faith, Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees, or attachment, to being honest, as we talked yesterday, another redefinition of Sadhu Sangha. Bhajana Kriya, like engagement in bhajan or engagement in devotional activities, and then Anartha-nivritti. So many times Anartha-nivritti is seen as like the result of Bhajana Kriya, like the byproduct. You engage in bhajan, in practice, and the anarthas go away. But I appreciate that Anna say Anartha-nivritti is a process. So it's not just Anartha-nivritti is what happens as a natural consequence of practicing, chanting your rounds, worshiping deities, studying the scripture, but also entails, it's a process unto itself. It's a, as you were saying, becoming aware of my bad habits. No, that it's not that happens automatically. There has to be some intentional effort to be introspective, right? It's not just I just chant my rounds and all the anarthas go away magically. I don't need to invest myself in thinking about what's getting in the way. I just do what I'm told to do and everything just like, well, I don't think that's the case in practice. Of course, we don't want to downplay the effect or the power of, like Mahaprabhu said, the holy name, Chetudharpanamarjana, by engaging in Sankirtan, the mirror of the subconscious, will say, the chitta gets cleansed. So we are being cleansed and purified unconsciously of so many things. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't make a conscious effort of becoming aware of what may be getting in the way. Follow my point? So it's not black and white. It's not, I just practice and everything goes away magically. I don't need to think too much. No, but also not the extreme of, if I do not think, I become aware about every single anartha, they won't go away. No, there's also lots of things that is being purified without us being aware of that. But that doesn't mean be lazy, so to say. So Anartha-nivritti, I appreciate what Anna says, it's also a process. No? And as you say, it's not just something that, okay, after Anartha-nivritti comes Nishta, so Anartha-nivritti is gone then. That's not what our acharyas say. Anartha-nivritti continues in its own form, in Nishta, in Ruchi, in Asakti, even up to Bhava. So it's a companion on the journey till almost the very end. So we better get to coexist together in peace, right? Because it will be with us for a long time. So, because again, it's getting rid of false values. That as the more we progress, as I think we were talking with Patraklas yesterday, the more we progress on the path, the more fine the anarthas become. No? So the more we need introspection, attention, presence. Buen día.
Hola.
¿Cómo están,
Hola.
chicos? ¿Bien?
Bien.
Un gusto conocerlos. Nitai, Gopal,
Sí.
bienvenidos.
Gracias.
¿Cómo están? ¿Bien?
Sí.
Bueno, me alegro. Un gusto conocerlos. Permiso, seguimos aquí. Cambiamos de idioma. Shifting back to English. I need to practice my Spanish always. Every time I have the chance. So we were saying that, no? Like what we were talking about yesterday in the car.
The subtleness.
The subtleness, yeah. So the more we advance in the process, the more Anartha-nivritti becomes more subtle. So we need to pay more special attention to that. But we are progressing. But at the same time, the progress is marked by this invitation to become more fine, more nuanced, more vigilant, not more neurotic, just more attentive, more aware, more mindful. I mean, that's what happens when someone becomes more and more advanced. You become more sensitive, more aware, more nuanced, naturally. And you want to be that. It's not like, okay, I have to do that. You want to really have integrity, and be present and be aware and be, authentic. Right? So yesterday we were celebrating Srila Bhakti-Rakshakshara Goswami Maharaj's disappearance day, briefly mentioning that celebration in our sharing, and he will define Anartha-nivritti, because as we were talking yesterday, I always like to define words, not maybe have an obsession with etymology and all the things, but again, sometimes we need to go to what the word actually means, because many times we use words that originally meant something and now they mean who knows what. No, like for example, I don't know, let me use a few of them, even from the English language. No, like the word respect. No, I remember we were talking about that in New Zealand last time.
Mm-hmm.
And I say respect and Balaram say like, I don't like that word. No, I mean, he didn't say like that, but he say basically like, when I hear respect, that triggers me something from the past in terms of you better be respectful or something like that. No, like respect is something imposed, forced, superficial. Oh, I have to respect. It has nothing to do with the origin of the word, right? Respect means re in Latin comes from re. Spect comes from, in English, spectacles. Spectacles means like glasses, like lenses. So spect means spessare, means to see, and re means anew, again. So respect means to look again, or to look anew. So to respect someone means to see that person from a new perspective. No, not to put that person in a box and, okay, that's who you are, but to be able to change my angle of vision and rediscover the person. That's actually the meaning of the word respect. But again, hardly we may relate that nowadays with what it means to respect, to rediscover, to remain in awe and wonder, exploring new perspectives. But that was the meaning of the word. Something got lost on the way, so sometimes we need to reclaim that. So the same can happen with Anartha-nivritti. Again, we can think is sometimes by anarthas we may have a very basic idea. Okay, greed, lust, anger, envy, and all that is bad stuff that we need to battle and kill, and those are the enemies, and we enter into a little bit like a warrior mode, and I will chant my rounds, and it's like shooting at all of those demons that are outside, and that's Anartha-nivritti. And it could be more nuanced than that. And as we will see, there are way more anarthas than the ones we think there are. Because again, the word anarthas, let's say the Maharaj will describe means, and that the word means, artha means value. No, like dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Artha means like gain, value. And anartha, in Sanskrit, a at the beginning means like the opposite many times, like anartha, amrita, amrita, and so on. So anartha means false value. So like counterfeit money, right? Like I have a perfect counterfeit 50 euro paper here, and you don't know it's false. So you ascribe to that certain value. You invest some hope. Oh, with this I can feed my family. So you go to the market, even without knowing, and you present the bill. So this is counterfeit. They call the police, you end up in jail. Like 5 minutes ago, you were excited. Oh, I have this 50 euro bill. Now I'm trapped. What happened? You didn't know that you invested some false sense of value in something that actually didn't have that. Just an example, right? So Anartha-nivritti means that. It's like false values, or false, let's use this word, false beliefs. Let's be honest. We live our lives with many beliefs about many things, which not necessarily are true. Again, belief doesn't mean actual reality. And that's why, as we were talking last night, I don't like much to say I believe in God. I always liked Carl Jung's reply to that. Someone once asked Carl Jung, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "No. I know he exists." He made the difference, believing and knowing that someone is for real, right? Someone asked me, "Do you believe in Patrak?" Like believing in Patrak's existence. It's like wrong question, right? I mean, he's here, in front of us, 3D experience of Patrak. So I don't need to believe. I just have an experience. So you follow my point? So believe is more like a mental conviction. Yeah, I believe. Like I hope there is such a thing. But if you have an undeniable experience that is too real to deny, at the same time too deep to fully comprehend, that's the nature of contacting the absolute, right? It's too big to deny, it's undeniable, but at the same time it's too deep to fully grasp the whole thing. So I don't need to believe, it's an experience. But at the same time, we carry so many beliefs. That's my point. In the name of spiritual life, Krishna consciousness, bhakti, Gaudiya, Vaishnavism, however you may like to call it, many times we move ourselves in our life and practice with beliefs that may be real, but also we may not have the experience of that. For my point, I can give you an idea. Okay, like Krishna plays the flute. Probably if you don't have an experience of the flute, it may be more like a concept. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but then you need to actualize that eventually in the form of experience. But sometimes we may have an idea that is actually wrong. So it's a false belief. And we may carry our practice with false beliefs. So false belief will carry us to a, how to say, incomplete or dysfunctional experience. And what to speak of the final fruit of that. So Anartha-nivritti means basically that getting rid of, we can say, obstacles or bad habits or false beliefs, false values, in the name of God, in the name of the soul, as we will see, in the name of even this material world. We may carry wrong conceptions, and those conceptions takes us to apply them in practice. We try to apply wrong conceptions, and the fruit of that application, if the conception was wrong, probably what follows is similarly, like Srila Prabhupada will say, if you're adding numbers, you say, in mathematics, and you make a mistake in the first addition, no matter how correctly you do the rest, end result is wrong. Right? No? You say in English, like you do this first step with the left foot or something. You don't have that saying.
Yeah.
You have it? Something like that, right? So throughout this, today I'm giving more like an introductory presentation to the theme, and then the remaining 4 lectures I like to address 4 of the 4 chapters of my book, Evolution in Divine Love, that I published yesterday, recently. Yesterday, yeah, it was recent. And at the end of each chapter, there are 4 chapters, where I speak about love, God, soul, and matter. I try to address each one of those departments and try to dismantle some false beliefs about what love is, who Krishna is, who we are, and what's this world. And at the end of each chapter, I try to summarize with something that I call key paradigm shifts. No, I try to bring, not from my own creation, but based on our tradition, paradigm shift. So a paradigm shift is, as the word says, change of paradigm, a shift in shifting, seeing things from a different perspective. And I say we all need that. We all need paradigm shifts. Progress is marked by paradigm shifts. So we were saying the other day, someone once asked Srila Siddhar Maharaj, Gurudev, can you give me a service? And he said, change your angle of vision. That was a service. That's a good service. Right? He didn't say peel potatoes, wash the bathroom, mop the floor. Change your angle of vision. Oh, okay. I have save up for the rest of my life for that. I don't need to ask any more instruction, anything. I'm busy now. So again, that's Anartha-nivritti. Change your angle of vision. Be willing to become aware of false beliefs that may be affecting, influencing the way you see the world, the way you see yourself. Yesterday we shared a little bit about that. Sometimes we see ourselves in toxic ways, in unhealthy ways, and we extend that to God, and we extend that to the world. We see the world in a toxic way, and we extend that to us. And that's something important also. When we have a misunderstanding about any of the things, love, God, soul, matter, since all of them are interrelated, one misunderstanding kind of overspills into the other, right? Well, my point, if I see, I don't know, if I see myself if I see God as a angry dad, so to say, I have my unresolved daddy issues, and I'm projecting them into the ultimate authority figure, basically. Okay, God is an angry person. He doesn't love me yet. I have to be perfect first to love him. So I start to see myself as an earner of God's love and unloved. By seeing God in a certain way, I see myself in a certain way, and probably I see the world as a place of chastisement that angry daddy put me in. So I start like to project all the distortions into every direction, right? God is an angry daddy. Love is something that you have to deserve and earn. No, the world is a prison. I'm someone unlovable. You follow my point? One distortion distorts the whole paradigm. And the same with, even if you start not with God, but with yourself, again, you can project the same distortions in every other direction. So that's why it's very important to have proper, what we will call, I'm sorry, I don't have here, what do you say? A board to write. I won't torture you with many Sanskrit terms, but a little torture, just a little bit. This word Sambandha, you may have heard the word Sambandha. In our tradition, we have Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojan. Sometimes that's translated as theory, practice, result in very simple way. And Sambandha is Sambandha Gyan, no? It's the knowledge that kind of orients our practice. No? Whatever we do is based on some information. And we do whatever we do in order to obtain a result. For example, your action was coming to this retreat these days. That was an action, the Avideya, what you are doing. But that Avideya was informed by some Sambandha, some information. We have this retreat with this person, we will be talking about that. That was the orientation. And you say, okay, I go. And you come with some hope of experiencing something. You follow my point? So every action is guided by some form of information. So the point is, if the information is distorted, the action will be misguided, and the fruit you can imagine. So Sambandha is our orientation in life and in practice. But the word Sambandha means Sambandha. Bandha means, like in English, bonded, connected. And Sam means everything. So Sambandha Gyan, our theoretical orientation, means the knowledge, Gyan or Sambandha, of how everything is interconnected. God, love, soul, matter. There is a common center, we will say Krishna, the all attractive, and everything else revolves, orbits around, constellates around that center, if you want to use that symbol. But everything is interconnected. We are not isolated units. We are not separate from each other. That's the thing, which is one of the main anarthas, false values, right? I am my own being, separated, alienated. Instead of seeing a whole, we see separate parts. We have a fragmented vision, dualistic vision. That's what the Bhagavatam say, bhayam dvitiya viniveshata. That when you have dualistic vision, separatistic vision, fear arises. Because you feel, I live in a fragmented world. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel whole, integrated. But it is, just we have put the pieces together. Everything is revolving around a common center. The other day in Italy, we were sharing an example that I include in my book that a scientist gives. He says, imagine you have a piece of paper and you fold the piece of paper in different ways, and it ends up being like a triangle. And then you pierce the paper until you have one hole, one center in the triangle. There's only one center. But then you unfold the paper and there are so many centers now. It seems. But then you have to put it back in place. There's only one center. Right. So in our scattered consciousness, it seems to be many centers. It doesn't seem that reality is coherent, revolving around one common center. So Krishna consciousness is the process of putting everything into place, and we're like, oh, there was only one center. And it's not me, just in case. Nor you, with all respect. In case you were wondering, maybe it's not Maharaj, maybe I'm the center of all reality. Don't try it. It's too much to be the center of reality. Right? So, anyhow, So we are talking about, again, Anartha-nivritti, going back to the idea. If we have a wrong orientation to life, if we have a distorted idea of God, maybe that spills over to a wrong understanding of us and love and practice and the world. So it's very important that we get it right, so to say. And many times getting it right implies unlearning what we got it wrong sometimes. Many times the process of spirituality is about unlearning a lot of stuff. And sometimes people think, well, I'm going to this retreat, I will learn a lot of new things. I probably will be doing mostly unlearning than learning. But that's part of the learning also. Dying to something to be born to something else. Unlearning to be ready to learn properly. So, or as yesterday also, Patrak told me in the car, Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam. You say that, right? Take responsibility, Patrak, please. Okay. He's confessing, accepting. So that's a famous line. On that basis, Rupa Goswami composed his own definition of bhakti, anyavilasita sunyam jnana karmadina brita manokulena krishnanam shilam bhaktirut. So Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam is a verse from another scripture, which basically says we have to get absolutely free from sarva upadi, from all false designations. It's kind of similar to what we are talking here now. Anartha-nivritti is we have to get rid of false values, false beliefs. Because many times that's what gets in the way. No? That's what gets in the way. Sometimes I meet devotees who tell me, Maharaj, I'm practicing for, again, the numbers count, no? For 40 years, 20 years, 30 years, and still, I don't know, I feel stuck, or I'm not feeling anything, or I'm having this problem. Which, first of all, as we were talking yesterday, that you are practicing for 30 years doesn't mean that you have to attain Prem. No, Prem is not something so cheap that you can attain in 30 years, right? Just to put that in place first, no? Because sometimes we think, okay, 30 years already. Where is everything? And from the perspective of eternity, 30 years is like, no? With all respect for those 30 years, right? Again, we are not here in a competition about getting some trophy in certain amount of time. We're just already doing what we want to do forever, right? But sometimes, with good reasons, devotees may feel stuck. And maybe, and sometimes, unfortunately, the advice may be, oh, you just chant more rounds. I'm having this problem, or having this, I feel I have a faith crisis. You have to come more to Mangalarti. That's a problem. Yeah. Wake up earlier. Yeah. Eat less. Probably food is getting in the way of your progress. I'm joking, right? Just in case. Chant more rounds. Your chant 16 doubled, 32. Things will get better for sure. And of course, then you try it with your best intention of heart, and you feel more miserable. No, because I feel the same, but now chanting double rounds. So there must be something really wrong with me. Or this process doesn't work. We can get in those two dangerous places, I would say. I don't work. There's something ontologically wrong with me. Or the practice doesn't work. And probably it's neither of them. It's probably just I need to maybe gain more awareness of what's getting in the way. Because maybe I can chant 64 to 128 rounds, but maybe with some false beliefs in between, with some false ideas about Krishna and about the name and about me. So no matter how many rounds I chant, if I do not removing what's getting in the way, that's still there. Again, if I'm chanting thinking, to give you an example, no? Yeah, we'll chant 3 times more. But if my notion of chanting is Krishna is over there, far away, above these clouds, not here, it's not a present tense person. He's a future tense person. He's to be attained at some time in the future, not now. He's not here. He's over there. He's farther away. And I have to chant to call him so he can please listen to me. And I will try to be very good and perfect so he finally loves me. That's a long list of misconceptions there. So probably no wonder that your chanting won't feel very deep and moving because so many things are getting in the way. No, Krishna is not far away. I mean, the Upanishads say he's more close than the most close, and he's the more far than the far away. Like implying, if you want to feel him the most far away person, you will feel that. But if you want to feel him the most intimate connection, he's there, right? He's everywhere. Right? And of course, again, okay, I will chant so I catch Krishna's attention. Like if Krishna is, I don't care for you until and unless you call me. Okay, what do you want? Oh, that's not Krishna. Right? He already loves you unconditionally. He already is present there. Okay, then I will chant the name to invoke to call him to come. But again, the name is non-different from Krishna. So I'm not calling Krishna through the name. Krishna isn't the name. So the very moment I say, Hare Krishna, there are Krishnas. Follow my point? But many times we invoke the name, like call him to someone like far away. Hey, come, listen to me. Yeah. And Krishna is already fully present, and Radha and Krishna are fully present in the name. They are the closest of the closest. But we may have a false belief, and we may not be aware of that, and we may just trying to shout to someone who we feel is so far away, and hopefully you're hearing me. I hope this prayer gets you. And they are like, hey, I'm closest than anything in your life. So just an example of how a set of false beliefs can also get in the way of our daily practice. And of course, if you did that wrong, if you're chanting from a misguided place one day, and you repeat that pattern next day, next week, next month, you multiply that for a few 10, 20 years, that can create some problems. You follow my point? So you may be practicing for 20 years, 30 years, but if you are practicing for 20 years in a misguided way, the more you practice in that way, the worse the problem. I'm not saying nothing good is coming at the same time, just in case. I don't want to sound like you have lost all your time, because that's not, again, it's not black and white. You can be practicing with some wrong ideas and still there are real things coming, and you can be sincere, but at the same time we need to pay some attention to what maybe I'm entertaining some false belief. At least let's be humble enough to say, maybe, hopefully not, but I will open myself to see if I'm having some wrong ideas about something and how that may be getting in the way, and what can we do about it. So sarvopadi vinirmuktam, gradually getting free from all false values or misconceptions. But as I say before, we are talking about the Anartha-nivritti, but in Rupa Goswami's sequence, before Anartha-nivritti, there are three things happening: Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana, Kriya. So that's also interesting, because Anartha-nivritti sounds more like a negative thing, like get rid of what is not. But first, before the negative, quote unquote, thing, comes so much positive stuff. Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana, Kriya, like faith, association with devotees, positive engagement in bhakti. So in the context of that positive gifts, those positive gifts, we address what needs to be get rid of. So my point is, the whole practice is not about just getting rid of the negative, right? Because we can also, that's another anartha. We can conceive our practice all in terms of the negative. I get to get rid of the negative. It's nothing about offering something positive. And that's not the idea, right? Like Mahaprabhu in the second verse of Shikshastakam. Like the other day, someone asked me, someone's told me that someone said to her, okay, one of the most important moods to chant japa is you have to regret. You have to feel regret. That's very important. And let's, whoops. And the example was Mahaprabhu's second verse of Sikshastakam, which at the end he says, I have no attraction for the holy name. So he felt regret. You should feel regret while chanting Anna. She seems very inspired, you can see. she's ecstatic. So I like to say in that context, I mean, I'm not canceling that line, but that's the last line. There are 4 lines in that verse, right? That's the last line. So the last line happens in the context of other 3 first. So what does Mahaprabhu say in those 3 first lines? He's all showing gratitude and appreciation of Krishna's unconditional grace. Nam Nam Karibahu Daniya Sharva Shakti. Krishna, you have so many names, endless names. In each one of these names, all of them are surcharged with all your potencies. No? And Niyamitasmaranena Kalahat Trarpita Niyamitasmara. There are no hard, fast rules to chant these names. So here's again lots of positive appreciation of the gifts. You are coming, you are not different from your names. There are so many names, all energies in those names. You are not making very difficult to engage with that. So much appreciation. No? And then he said, oh, your grace is such. Niyamitasmaranena kalha tadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mama. Tava, or your kripa bhagavan is such. And then comes the contrast. And in that context, I still have no anurag, no deep attraction for that. So it's a healthy lamentation that happens in the context of deep appreciation. So it's not just negativity. You follow my point? First comes positivity. Oh, so much gifts are coming. So much grace is coming. So much unconditional love you're showing to me. And be moved by all that. Yeah, I know I could do better. I will do, and he will do it. It's not that he says, I have no attraction and he becomes depressed and lives the Krishna consciousness, right? Or traumatized, no? Like, then he says, yeah, I have no attraction. And then comes the 3rd verse, which is the most important thing Mahaprabhu said. So he's very inspired out of that. So we have to understand when we say, you should regret. What do we mean by that? In which context? You should repent, because if not, we can create a whole practice based on guilt and toxic shame, and you feel miserable about yourself, as we were talking yesterday. And somehow, without noticing that, it ends up being the standard mood to practice bhakti. Right? Welcome to this movement. You are expected to feel miserable about yourself. That's the only correct way to be a devotee. Feel as bad as you can about yourself. The worse you feel about yourself, the better you're doing. You're trying to do the math, right? Like, it does make sense, but anyhow, everyone is saying that. Everyone seems to be doing that. Okay, I'm supposed to feel miserable about it. That's humility. That's surrender. But after a few years, just like this, not sustainable, right? I need therapy. I need healing. So many times we may realize, oh no, that was not the actual idea. It was a misunderstanding. Maybe there was not bad intention. Just we got it wrong. It's okay. Life happens. For some reason, we had to go through that. And there's always time to rediscover. So again, I'm saying all this because we are talking about Anartha-nivritti, getting rid of false values. But before that, we are receiving again Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, gifts, unconditional grace. So much positive blessings already are in our lives. So in that context, okay, let's try to become aware of false beliefs that maybe get in the way. But not just about this, all about getting rid of the negative. That's all what's about Krishna consciousness is now. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he once said, he was speaking about Anartha-nivritti, but he said, actually, he was famous for speaking. He many times said, how did he say, in my classes, I I generally speak 80% what, for example, he will say, in terms of Raganuga Bhakti, the spontaneous love that follows in the footsteps of the Brajavasis that our tradition invites us to join. He'll say, I generally, in my presentation, 80% of the time I speak about what Raganuga Bhakti is not. Like trying to make the point, many times we first need to get rid of false beliefs so we can understand the real thing. So he will speak a lot about Anartha-nivritti, but one day he said, to be honest, this process is not about Anartha-nivritti. I mean, that's a part, but the actual thing is called Artha-pravritti. So Artha-pravritti means to attain the highest wealth or value or gift. So in the context of that, we engage in Anartha-nivritti. But it's not that Anartha-nivritti is the goal of life, just getting rid of stuff. But loving Krishna positively, favorably, that's how it begins, how bhakti comes to our life, through faith, through proper association, through gifts of practice. And that's how it ends. But in the middle of that, we need to, we need to do sometimes the example is given of interior decorators, you know that? Like people like you pay for to come to your house, to interior decorator. And so imagine you like hire an interior decorator. So they come and they start to take stuff, like this goes out, this goes out. So that's how it begins. They're throwing all the stuff out of the window. And it's like, I'm paying for you to destroy my house. You're throwing out. And he said, no, first we need to get rid of what gets in the way of the actual decoration. Then we, after that stuff was put in its place, we can think about positively ornamenting and decorating. But so that's part of the decoration. It's not just getting rid of stuff for the sake of that. It's in the context of building a temple, loving temple of love in our heart. Right? It's an interior decoration process. You can think about that. My bhakti, sadhana bhakti is interior decoration. In the context of beautifying my heart to make it a fit offering for Krishna, I need to get rid of some stuff that gets in the way. So I'd like to conclude today's again, it's an introduction. Tomorrow I'm planning to go to each one of these chapters, love, God, soul, and matter, through the key paradigm shifts, and analyze some ideas that probably you don't have wrong. I hope so, but we may have wrong, and we can always refine them. It's fine, right? But I like to make the point how some of our acharyas, when they speak about Anartha-nivritti, they give a very broad definition of it. Again, way more refined than just a very basic idea of getting rid of lust or greed or envy. That's it. But showing even how we can develop new anarthas after practicing bhakti. Right? Maybe you didn't have certain anarthas before you were a devotee. Now you became a devotee. You got rid of some anarthas, but you acquired new ones. Can happen. That's mentioned in the tradition, right? So, and some, for example, let me mention two of them: Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and more connected to my particular tradition, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So both of them speak about Anartha-nivritti. Rupa Goswami gives these 9 stages, and then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborates, and then in his book called Madhurya Kadambini, he goes in detail. There are many commentaries to that. So it's interesting because and I'm briefly summarize, I won't go into each one in full detail because that will take too much time. But he says Anartha-nivritti is divided in 4. Vishwanath Chakravarti says, and those 4 are 2 pairs of opposites. So that's from interesting in itself, because that will show us, you will see how anarthas or false values can come from anywhere. can come from what we consider this is good, like bhakti, but you can get anarthas, not because bhakti gives you anarthas, but by misunderstanding bhakti and what's bad. So he will say, for example, anarthas are divided into 4. Duskritota anartha and sukritota anartha. Again, a few terms. So duskriti means sinful activities, and sukriti means pious activities. So first he's saying the obvious. Of course, if you behave in a sinful, self-centered, selfish, exploitative way, probably that will create false values. You're already acting on that way based on false values, and they may reinforce the false values. But then he says, you may act in a very pious way, materially speaking, and that can create its own set of false values. No? You can become very, I don't know, charitable and develop some superiority complex, right? Like I'm walking in the street and someone is hungry and I'm feeding you. And I'm creating some hierarchy in feeding you. Like you need me, I'm feeding you. You're the one who needs help, I'm the one who is helping. I mean, I have nothing against feeding someone, but just you have to be sure you're doing it from the right place. Because we can be doing something generally considered pious, sattvic, good, nice, and it can foster some anartha, some false value. You are in need, I'm not in need. I'm in need also. You are starving, I'm feeding you. I'm starving in my own way. Maybe I'm not starving physically when our soul and my soul, so I need to be fed in another way. So some examples to these first 2 anarthas, who are again a set of opposites, so to say, sukriti, duskriti. And you can develop false values whether you engage in pious activities or impious activities. And then he says, the other 2 anarthas, according to how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is framing them, is aparadota anartha and bhaktiyuta anartha. So he says aparadota are the anarthas that come from aparad, from what we will use to say offenses, or going against love. That's aparad, what aparad actually means. Aparada. Rada means love. Apa means the opposite of love. So attacking bhakti, attacking the devotee, criticizing, offending in it, that gets in the way. That fosters anarthas. But then he again, aparad means to attack bhakti. But then he goes from aparadota to bhaktiyota. So to not attack bhakti, but to practice bhakti. And as a result of practicing bhakti, we may, no, not you, we may develop some anarthas, to give you an example. Because again, the anarthas from aparad are more obvious. But how do you say, bhakti creates anarthas? No, I'm not saying bhakti creates anarthas. But you may practice bhakti, as I say before. Before practicing bhakti, you didn't have any followers, right? You didn't have fame, name, position, any of that. So you were not even hankering for that. You were fine. Then you start practicing bhakti, you acquire knowledge, you develop some advancement, people get inspired by you, start to follow you, start to love you, and you may become attached to that. You may develop a whole identity based on, oh, I have followers, I'm famous, I have donations coming, whatever. I mean, you name it. It can be so many things. So now you have an anartha that you didn't have before practicing bhakti. Yeah. So that's an important point, because we can think, okay, I'm coming to bhakti with this whole bunch of anarthas, so I'll try to get rid of them. But we sometimes may not consider, I may be acquiring new ones, which come in the name of bhakti, which again are more tricky because they do not seem like anarthas. It's how I deal with them internally, right? Because you can have followers and you are seeing them as people that you are serving. So it's fine. It doesn't become an anartha. but you can see them as my followers, no? my fans club or something, and you may become addicted to that. I need my daily dose of kijais, no? At least 108 kijais per day I need to keep my identity boosted. You can become addicted to all that stuff. So again, externally, nobody sees. Externally, you are there teaching, there is people, but how you're dealing with that internally, maybe something that fosters humility and you consider yourself a servant of them, or fostering bhakti to anarthas. You follow the idea? So again, that's for me interesting. Going to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, anarthas can come from piety or impiety. They can come from offenses to bhakti or from the byproducts of practicing bhakti properly. You can practice bhakti properly, a result comes, and then you can deal with that result improperly. And that now you have a new anartha. So again, all this invites for introspection, attentiveness, vigilance. I always like to recall how in the Bhagavatam, the very first word that Brahma hears is tapas. And tapas, sometimes we translate that as austerity, but tapas also means fire in Sanskrit. So Brahma heard the word fire. And it's not that he just took 2 sticks. There were no sticks, there was nothing. There was only Brahmas, we know, right? See, then he took, oh, hey, fire. Fire was created for the first now. Here, fire, he closed his eyes and he became introspective. And then he received the further insight to know what to do with his life, so to say. So in one sense, that fire means introspection, like entering to yourself. Like in Sanskrit, we have the word swadhyaya, which is sometimes translated as study of the scriptures. But actually, swadhyaya means to meditate on yourself. Swadhyaya. Not in a narcissistic way. Okay, I will meditate in me. But to be introspective, be contemplative. So tapas, this word fire that Brahma heard in the beginning of creation, can be translated as introspection. That's the first word in the universe that puts the whole creation in context. You are coming here, you better enter the fire of introspection. So by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describing the anarthas in this way, he's inviting us not get neurotic, but just know that you are practicing bhakti doesn't mean that you are not acquiring new anarthas in the name of bhakti. No. Be attentive. And then I like to go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He gives his own phrasing or description of anarthas when he speaks about Anartha-nivritti. Again, he gives 4 categories, and then he gives 4 subcategories to each one of those categories. I won't go to each one of them. It will be too much. I like to concentrate on the first one he gives. So the first one that Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes is Tattva Vibhrama. What is anartha? Which are the anarthas? First category, Tattva Vibhrama. So Vibhrama means bewilderment or confusion. Like Brahma Vimohan Lila, Vimohan. No? This is Brahma with an H after the B. It's not like Brahma. So Tattva Vibhrama. It's like Vimohan, confusion. And Tattva means, interestingly, it's a very interesting word, Tattva. But Tattva means reality, actually. It's not just it's reality. So Tattva Vibhrama is to be bewildered about reality. Which of course is a very wide way of saying, but that's an anartha. To not get reality right. To have wrong ideas about all that reality is. In the Bhagavatam, reality is described as tattva. Badanti tat tatva vidas tatvam yajnanadvayam brahmeti paramadmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. Famous verse of Devata, and Jiva Swami makes his whole Sat Sandarbhas based on that verse, basically. And there Devata says, reality is non-dual consciousness. That's the definition of reality. So that's reality. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, okay, that's the first thing he says. What's an anartha? To be confused about what is what, about reality. And then he subdivides that confusion in 4 parts. I'd like to go there for a minute, because that's what we were actually, and I realize that now. That's what I'm, without knowing it, I didn't mention all this in my book, but somehow I realized, yeah, that's what I'm doing there. The 4 categories he mentions of confusion about reality are connected to us, the world, God, and love. This Tattva Vibhrama or Tattva Brahma, confusion about reality. The first one is Swatattva Vibhrama, to be confused about the reality of who we are, the soul. Illusion about oneself, basically. In all the ways you can be confused about yourself. Not only about the soul, but also who we are now and how to deal with our current identity. To have a toxic idea about who we are. We will, again, speak about that these days. Just to feel, okay, Krishna doesn't love me, I'm unloved, I'm unlovable. That's confusion about who you are. To give an example. So that's the first one. Interestingly, again, when we want to make some emphasis, the first things, we will put some special attention, what comes first. So in all the anarthas, first thing Bhaktivinoda Thakur is mentioning, to be confused about reality. And then about the different forms you can be confused, he starts to be confused about yourself. He will mention second one and third one, we'll speak about Krishna, love, this world, but first, you better learn to relate to yourself, because if not, probably you're projecting your own toxic, dysfunctional relationship to yourself affects how you relate with everything else. So the first one is illusion about yourself. The second is paratattva vibhrama. No, to be illusion about paratattva, the ultimate truth or God, let's put it that way. To entertain wrong ideas, false values, false beliefs about who Krishna is. First one, false beliefs about who you are. That's an anartha we need to clean, to work on. Second one, false beliefs about who the divine is. Third one, sadhya sadhana tattva brahma. To be confused, bewildered about sadhya and sadhana, or the means and the goal and the means. What's the nature of the goal of life? What's the nature of how to attain that goal of life? Bhakti for us. Bhakti is both the means and the goal for us. And bhakti means love. So that's another way of saying to be confused about the nature of love. So far, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has covered the soul, God, and love. Those are 3 of the 4 main themes of my book. Now I'm putting all those dots together. I should have included that in my book, 2nd edition, okay. And the last one, he says, Maya Tattva Brahma, to be illusioned or confused about the nature of material energy, Maya Shakti. That's another anartha. To have, let's say, toxic ideas about nature. That's interesting. He considered all that an anartha. No? To have wrong ideas about what's this world, what's material energy. Again, wrong ideas we will see these days. Matter is bad. We briefly mentioned that. This world is a prison. This is a bad place. Material energy is trying to take me down. No, it's competing with Krishna. It's like the Gaudiya Vaishnava parallel of Satan. No, that's not like that. No. But we need to get rid of those false beliefs, because if not, we will feel threatened in this world, and we will be like rejecting all this, while Krishna is residing in every atom at the same time. As he says in the Brahma Samhita, He say, hey guys, I'm there in every atom. And we are like, oh, this matter is so despicable, horrible. And Krishna is, well, I don't find it that way. I'm being hosted by matter in every atom, so I'm fine here, so to say. So again, we need to gain I like the word coherent. We get to get a coherent picture, a wholesome, coherent picture of how to practice, how to relate to matter, to God, to us, to love, in a way that makes sense. That is based on scripture, but it's a coherent understanding of scripture, right? So again, this is interesting. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes Anartha-nivritti in this way. First, Anartha, illusion about reality. And what's that? Illusion, not to be clear about who you are, who God is, what love is, bhakti, how to practice, and what's the world. So it's basically the 4 chapters of my book: love, God, soul, and matter, and how to understand them through proper, sometimes paradigm shifts. Again, we may have a wrong idea and we need a paradigm shift, a change of vision, like, oh, matter is not bad, matter is sacred. For some, that may be a paradigm shift. At least sometimes I've talked about that in some lectures. I've seen in the face of people like, okay, paradigm shift there. No, the whole face is shifting. It's like, matter is sacred. Krishna is in every atom. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that material energy is the most, a Vaishnavi with the highest devotion. So another change of perspective. And again, we all need that constantly, readjusting. Like the GPS, right? Sometimes I give that example. We are going on the journey and GPS say, go left, and we go right. GPS says, recalculating. GPS is not bowling us, like, you stupid, you went in the wrong direction again. I'm tired of you. No.
I will turn off, I will know where you're going.
Yeah, I'm tired, I'm leaving this place. You find yourself some other guy. Recalculating. Again, over and over. So sometimes we may be on the path and go somewhere else. Okay? Paradigm shift, recalculating, new perspective, new understanding, proper understanding. So anyhow, that will be the main focus in today's an introduction, in one sense, but in this series of lectures during the mornings, going through love, God, soul, and matter in that order, one lecture for each one of them, and trying to address false beliefs we may be entertaining about love, God, soul, and matter, and getting rid of those false values, false beliefs. Anartha-nivritti. Anartha-nivritti. And again, as I said before, that's very much related to the idea of Sambandha, getting a clear picture of what is what in reality, so we can then live our lives, practice our spiritual life with a proper, coherent worldview. Because if the worldview is disjointed, distorted, our practice will be affected by that. And our fruit, what to speak of that. So proper Sambandha warranties proper Abhideya. That warranties proper Prayojan. The fruit at the end will be sweet, not bitter. Right? So that's what we'll be doing in the coming days during the morning. In the 4th remaining sessions in the morning. Tomorrow we'll be speaking about love, bhakti, because it all begins with love. It's the ultimate force and goal, as we'll see, for our lives and for even Krishna's life. And then next day we will talk about the divine God himself, then the soul, and finally material energy, and what we may need to adjust, or to rediscover in a deeper way. And in the evenings, as we say, we'll have one day. That's what I thought last night after our first meeting, since we also want to have some more private circle sharing as we did, we can do one evening Q&A and one evening circle sharing, because every day it may be too much, no? So we have also some space to eat, sleep, go to the bathroom, and basic survival stuff and recreate and share with one another. So I'm thinking maybe today in the evening we can have circle sharing, and tomorrow Q&A, and so on and on. But since today we won't have Q&A in the evening, I'm leaving a few minutes now in case you have something you would like to ask, or not necessarily a question. It can be a reflection, a comment, anything you may feel you would like to share or ask about what we shared mostly today now. Damodar.
I observe in myself since many years that, well, let me start like this. I have a very natural understanding that God loves me. Question how theoretical this is, but this is my worldview, so to say. And for me, in this concept, so to say, which I have no problem at all. But then when I, so to say, dock this picture that I have to our tradition, or maybe not even our tradition, but impressions I got along the way, a lot of fears come up, and I want to give a practical example. So, for example, with chanting is the thing I love the most because I have the feeling I cannot do anything wrong. And it's literally said this story of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was chanting, when he was, so to say, on the toilet and tried to hold his tongue. And the example of the story is you can do it anywhere. There's simply no rules. And for me, this is very relieving because according to this nature, in this body, in this embodiment, in this life, it seems that I have an issue with making mistakes. So I have a resonance to that. If someone points out, hey, you're making a mistake, immediately my focus goes there. So with chanting, I don't have this. I feel very relaxed and I feel I can relate to Krishna. But when I stand up in the morning, for example, and every day in the morning I offer a glass of water to Krishna. And it should be an act of joy or relating to God, giving myself to Him. But I observe myself with this, also with offering prasadam and other things, that I'm basically always have this fear in the back of my head. I can do something wrong. Literally, also technically, like I touch something wrong, or when I make obeisances, then I touch the floor, I have to wash my hands 10 times after touching anything, and so on. And to make it a bit short,
don't be afraid that you could do something wrong. Surely you're doing something wrong in those technical stuff. So get rid of that concern. It's yeah, for sure. Sorry to interrupt, but just to say, we are all, not only you, but there's always in the technicality realm.
Yeah. And then there's this verse, Patram Pushpam Paramtoyam, which on one side says, even Prabhupada in the purport says,
yeah.
It's so easy to the devatas, it's difficult to make everything because it's technical, but Krishna accepts everything. But then comes, for me personally, the key point is said with love, if you have to do it with love. And I have the feeling that I charge myself that I think, okay, there's not so much love there. So at least technically I should do it right. So to say, to this idea of making up for the love in this technical aspect. So I hope you get the point.
What to do with that? What to do with the morning glass offering, the water offering? Now, thank you for sharing, Damodar. And of course, as we were saying yesterday, I'm sure we are not alone in that struggle, right, between how to do it right and love and the rules. But I'm glad that you pointed to Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalantoyam, because that's a very important verse. We should not take lightly. Again, Krishna there is saying very clearly, just flower, fruit, water. In singular, he's even using, the words are singular. He's not saying flowers, fruits, just fruit, one water, one water, right? One drop, one something. But he uses the word bhakti twice. So the point is, I don't care for the externals. That's in my reading of that verse. Fruit, water, whatever. I don't care for that. But he says to us, bhakti. Patram pushpam phalantoyam jome bhakti prayachati tadaham bhakti upahritam Asnami prayatatmana. So he's clearly making the point. I mean, Krishna doesn't need water or apples. His diet is based on bhakti. No, his bhakti is not in the menu. He's not hungry. Let's put it that way. So if we offer something without bhakti, he's not eating that. Now, I'm not saying that to make you feel even worse about yourself. Oh, I don't have bhakti, I don't have love, so I have to make up for that with being perfect in my performance of the ritual. No. And I will say you have some bhakti. I mean, we may not have the ultimate expression of love, and I will add to that, in one sense, there is no ultimate expression of love, because love keeps expressing in further ultimate ways, as I try to make the point in my book. Love's nature is to continue grow. So there's no final end point of perfection. Okay, this is the final expression of love. There's no more love to be expressed. That doesn't happen. Even in Golok Vrindavan, everyone's loving Krishna more every moment. So Krishna is not like waiting for, okay, when you will reach the final end point of love's perfection, only then I'm happy with you. He's just saying, try to do it. Asnami prayatatmanaha. That's the last line. Prayatatmanaha means something like of someone, I accept flower, fruit, water, whatever, of someone who offers that with like proper consciousness, he will say. And proper doesn't mean our idea of proper, right? But sincere. Again, we are back to which point we are back. Remember yesterday we went back to the point, sincerity is invincible, right? So Krishna is saying, you're already a bhakta has bhakti on some level, and we can call that love. I mean, I wouldn't say you don't have love. Of course, we can always say, I could have more love. That will go on forever. Mahaprabhu himself, he's the ultimate expression of love, right? If someone has love, that's Sri Chaitanya. And he will say, Na prema gandhasti darapi harome. In me, there is not even the aroma of love. Again, it sounds contradictory, but he has love. He is love. And he says, I don't have anything. Because that's the paradox of love. The more love you have, the more love you can have. You follow? You are filled with love and you get a glimpse of how much more love there is. So by contrast of how much more love there is, you feel, I don't have anything. But you are filled with that. So it's very paradoxical. So my point is, don't wait for the day that you feel, okay, now I'm filled with love. Finally, officially. That will not happen. Because love is always thirsty for more. So the best thing we can do is just offer yourself as sincerely as you can, and knowing that there is love already as a gift, as a grace in your life. Bhakti came to your life as a gift. We cannot deny that. It will be false humility. I mean, Mahaprabhu is saying, I don't have any love. Try to follow my point. Mahaprabhu is saying, I don't have any love, but he's saying that from a very ecstatic point. We cannot imitate that. Probably for us, humility is to say, I have love by the grace of bhakti. Now, it's not my own merit, my own thing. But as I like to say, love knocked on my door and I have dared to open the door. And now here I am. Love is coming on some level, again, not as a complacency thing. I have love, don't tell me anything, I'm already having love. No. But we have some bhakti. So Krishna is saying, whatever bhakti you have, please bring that to the offering. And I will be so happy with that. Pray at that. If you are honestly trying to offer your heart, wherever you are, as you are, Krishna is never saying, wait till you are perfect, wait till you, and only then offer something to me. He never says that. He basically, in this verse, Patram Pushpam Plantain, he's saying, water, fruit, like implying, don't lose so much time with the whole thing, bring your heart. I'm thirsty for your heart. Again, this is not an excuse to make a very simplistic offering. We can pour our heart and make something very elaborate as long as our heart is there. Because you can make something very elaborate, but if the heart is not there, Krishna, again, famous example, Vidura's wife, you know the story. Before Krishna first is invited by Duryodhana before the Kurukshetra war, and Duryodhana prepares a whole banquet, you say, like elaborate meal, tons and tables and musicians, whole show to impress Krishna, because he has some vested interest before the battle, wanting Krishna on his side. There was no bhakti there. He just wanted to manipulate Krishna. And Krishna comes and there's so much food and preparations, but there's no bhakti. So Krishna's coming in one street, and on both sides of the street, Duryodhana arranged all this performance, all this fake show of food and band playing, welcoming Krishna, praising him. But Krishna knew there's no bhakti here. So he continued walking the street like blind and deaf to all that. He was not hungry by seeing any of those preparations. He walked to the end of the street to Vidura's house. Vidura was Krishna's devotee, so he knocks. Vidura was not at home. Vidura's wife opens the door, just unexpectedly receiving Krishna. Imagine someone knocks your door, you open, and it's Krishna. At 4:30 in the morning. So you're in your bathrobes or something, and I'm like, oh, Krishna. Okay. Sometimes in India they have this saying, Atiti Devo Bhavan. You have to treat an uninvited guest as if it's God himself. But what if the uninvited guest is God himself? Literally, this was the case. Krishna and Vidura's wife is like, Krishna, yes. And Krishna immediately say, I'm hungry. No, it's interesting because he's just missing this whole banquet. If he will be hungry, why he didn't eat there? Because there was no bhakti. So what makes he's hungry for bhakti? That's what makes Krishna's stomach, I'm hungry. So yeah, I've seen so much lack of bhakti over there with that show of Duryodhana. I'm so hungry for the real thing. So I came here. I'm hungry. and Vidura's wife interprets that more literally, like, okay, you're hungry, you want to eat something. And they are poor, and Vidura is not there. She was caught by surprise. She didn't prepare anything. Krishna came and invited. So she says, I just have a few bananas here. And Krishna says, bring the bananas. And he doesn't care for the bananas. I mean, he wants bhakti. So he knows Vidura and Vidura's wife are my bhaktas. They love me. So whatever they offer me, that will fit me. So she said, I have some bananas, bring bananas. So Vidura's wife brings the bananas, and in the ecstasy of offering that to Krishna, as you may know the story, we need to tell it again. She starts to peel the bananas and throw away the bananas and offer the peels to Krishna. She becomes confused. Not the confusions we are talking here that we need to get rid of, Anartha-nivritti. She's an ecstatic confusion. So she's feeding Krishna banana peels. That's not in the Archana Padati, in the manual how to worship the deity. You're not invited to bring banana peels. So, but she's not realizing she's doing that. And Krishna is receiving the peels and it's eating them. Vidura's wife is not realizing she's offering the peels out of love. And Krishna, out of love, is not realizing that Vidura's wife is offering him peels. He's not aware of that. He's not seeing peel, banana, flower, fruit. He's seeing bhakti. No? He's eating one after another. And both of them are bewildered in their own loving way, because it's just an exchange of love. Vidura's wife is offering her heart, and Krishna is eating her heart, so to say, her love. Nobody sees the banana peels. Nobody says if there's banana peels, that's secondary. That's the spirit of this verse of the Gita, right? So again, we are not Vidura's wife. We are not at that level, but with whatever we have, we can make an honest presentation of of our heart, right? So I wouldn't recommend try to make up for your lack of bhakti with perfect technical performance. That will scare Krishna, so to say. So it's just like acknowledge that there is some bhakti, there is some love, and I want to offer that sincerely. And then you can give yourself fully through a glass of water. There are many statements about how Krishna. I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but it's all related to where we are talking, no? To have the proper idea of who is Krishna. Because if I'm feeling, okay, I have to be perfect in all my ritual, then indirectly I'm saying Krishna cares for that mostly. And if I fail in that, he won't care for me. So that's a distorted picture of who Krishna is. Like this story shows, he doesn't care for anything but bhakti. No? And not only he cares for our heart, but he feels so grateful for that, so indebted for that. Like when he says to, let me see, I have that in my, I mean, there's lots of quotes to share, but I want just to share a few set of those. Let's say, It's a trailer of my forthcoming book, the one who comes after this one, next year. But here I'm talking about how Krishna feels indebted to his devotees. But someone does something for him, he's so humble that he feels, wow, you offer that to me, that glass of water in the morning, Damodar? Wow, I feel so indebted. That's how Krishna actually feels. It's not that Krishna's like, I'm God, of course he has to offer me at least a glass of water. Hopefully more. That's not Krishna again. That's our science fiction movie in our mind projecting who God is. So for example, I'm sharing some sections here where Krishna is, for example, famous example of Draupadi. You know the story when Draupadi was being disrobed and she calls Krishna Govinda, Govinda, like deeply. And in the Mahabharata, there's one verse that Krishna says to Draupadi, that cry of yours has created an ever-increasing depth that does not leave my heart. That's how Krishna feels. You have called me with such sincerity and love that creating depth in my heart. Like, how do I reciprocate with my devotee? And that depth is not leaving my heart. That's how Krishna feels. He's not saying, oh yeah, I provided you unlimited sari, so I did my part. You called me, I replied, we got the deal. That's it, see you later. That's not our God. That's not the God we worship. No. And there are many quotes. I don't want to give so many, but there are so many in the same way. No. One commentary by Ramanujacharya also, he paraphrases Krishna saying, even after giving myself to my devotee, that's a very beautiful line. It appears to me that I have done nothing for that devotee. That's how Krishna feels. We have Bhagavatamrita, there's one line says, Swadhana atriptam, which means after Krishna gives himself in charity to his devotee, atriptam, he feels dissatisfied, feeling, I have not given enough. No? That's a God we worship. So watch out for having any other idea about him. I remember this year I went some months ago in visit a place called New Brindavan in Virginia in the United States, and I was talking with a very, very nice disciple of Srila Prabhupada. His name is Varsana Swami, and we were discussing the Brahma Stuti, the prayers of Brahma in the Bhagavad, and after the Vimohan Lila, after Brahma's confusion, came a whole chapter of Brahma's prayers. And in one verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, that paraphrases Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does a lot of that in his comments. Like he writes like if Krishna is speaking, right? What he means in the verse. And it's one part that Krishna says even, I feel grateful for my devotees, not only for the service that my devotees do to me, I feel, as we can see, not only grateful, but eternally indebted but also I feel grateful and indebted in anticipation to the service that they have not offered yet, but that they will offer. I already feel grateful and indebted to them before they did it. We were like, wow, how can someone be? I mean, we are talking about the all attractive, so it makes sense. If Krishna is the all attractive, he has to be so grateful, so moving, so humble, that he has to move us to tears, as it's happening right now. So I'm just making that point for us to be aware that's the God we worship. So whenever we go in the morning to present a glass of water, so to say, we are addressing that person, right? So that helps us to really address that person from the right place, basically. Krishna doesn't need to be impressed by any performance of technical, ritualistic perfection. If that's there, it has to be just as an extension of our heart. If the heart is not being extended in the form of something elaborate on the outside, they maybe get in the way. Maybe an anartha in the name of bhakti. I don't know.
Personally, I'm completely satisfied with your answer. It's very healing, so to say, and soothing for the soul. However, in order to have respect for the tradition, also for other devotees, I want to mention that you now say this thing and you focus on this part, which I appreciate very much. At the same time, for example, I learned when I was growing up that, for example, the sentence, it's much easier to worship Gaur and Nitai on the altar because they don't take any offense. If you worship Radha Krishna, you can make a lot of offenses during deity worship. Or, now I forgot it, but I just had it. I example, when I was making Bhakta course in Abendweier in Goloka Dam in Germany many years ago, I was cleaning the pots and there was rice stuck to them. And I tried to get every rice thing out of there because it said when your Lakshmi comes where there's no rice, corn thrown away. So I'm already this kind of person who tried really, and then it was stuck so much that I thought, okay, like, I don't know, 10 rice corns I will leave. I have to try to calm myself down, to not be so too crazy about it.
Yeah.
And then the head puchari comes and says, you have to get every rice corn out of there, so to say, and not throw it away. And I thought, like, some people are telling me I should calm down and not take these things so serious that in the end I give up on the whole process, so to say, because I'm not crazy. And then in this case, someone comes and says to me, be crazy, so to say, like, be like OCD, So how to deal with this?
Yeah.
How to deal with these two poles, so to say? You now make this one
emphasis? Yeah. Of course, not everyone is in the same situation, in the same place of the journey, and for some, I'm giving some perspective here, which I consider is I'm trying to support what I'm saying with the scriptures, not just it's my own stuff. And I just mentioned a few things, which I think this is the ultimate, most essential perspective. But I can understand that in the beginning, some people may need more rule-oriented thing and doing, or they may come with that idea, and you cannot just deconstruct that in one day. So there's a more fear-based oriented practice. Sometimes that's what's known as Vaidhi Bhakti. Like you are practicing more you are doing things properly because you are afraid of the consequences of not doing them properly. And Krishna, again, in his mercy, he's accepting that also. Like he says in the Gita, different people approach me, different people surrender to me with different motivations, out of fear, wanting relief, wanting knowledge, wanting wealth. I welcome them all. Those who are interested in me, actually, not in what I can offer. So my point is, there are different people coming from different backgrounds with different orientation, with different realizations, and I know that in the coexisting with those differences, sometimes there can be friction. There can be, because the problem is that sometimes some people will think this is the only way, right? You have to be technically impeccable in everything, because if not, Krishna is not here. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say, sometimes that for me characterizes more, if we want to use this term, the mentality of a Kanishta and a Madhyam. Let's say Kanishta Bhakti is a more narrow-minded, let's say unnuanced practitioner. No, like, okay, Krishna is only in the altar. No? And this is only like this. More reductionistic, hyper-localized, literalistic reading of things, and Madhyam will be more accommodating, more nuanced, more broad and deep. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there will be always conflict between a Kanishta and a Madhyam, because they have two different outlooks. And for what's correct for one is how the Kanishta needs to do things. For the Madhyam, that's suffocating. But the Madhyam has been a Kanishta, so he understands ideally from which place that person is doing, so that the Madhyam should appreciate that and try to guide the person gradually to broaden their horizon. But the Kanishta is not understanding the Madhyam probably. Thinking you are not correct because you are not following it in this way and in that way. And it's all about the externals many times. So there may be some unavoidable friction. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, we have to deal with that. There's no like magical formula. You do this, and everyone is like, Hare Krishna. There's part of because we are not in Golok Vrindavan. Golok Vrindavan, everyone is in Uttam, highest, so there's no conflict there. But here we are dealing with different dimensions, but on one level, it's unavoidable. There's always someone who will think you are deviated, you are not bona fide. You are not following properly. Probably you are following so properly but it's so internal that it's, again, some people say you cannot offer banana peels to Krishna. That's a deviation. And of course, we are not offering banana peels in the altar. But if it comes from a place like Vidura's wife, that's the perfection of worship. That's the perfection of archana, so to say. But we cannot imitate that. So as long as we are not there, of course, there are some rules, regulations, but that's a whole conversation. But that's all related to what's the purpose of the rules. The rules are not in themselves the purpose. It's not about doing the ritual perfect, doing it in a way that it inspires more devotion. As they say, smarta vyasatatam vishnur vishmarta vinajatu chit sarva viddhi nishedasur etayur about kinkara. Always think about Krishna, never forget Krishna. All the rules and regulations are to serve those two things, us. And of course, always think about Krishna means fall in love with Krishna. You can only think about someone by being in love with that person. You can force yourself to always think about someone. The only way I can always think about someone and never forget someone is just irresistibly attracted and falling in love with the person. And then that verse says, all the rules, all the rituals, all regulations, all the stuff has to serve that. If it's not serving that, then the rules is getting in the way. You are not understanding the actual purpose of the ritual or the rules. So, and that happens a lot. We may get stuck in getting the proper mudra and doing everything ritually correct, and it becomes just like a formulaic robotic thing. But there's not like it's not serving that purpose of melting your heart, so to say. So we have to be very aware of that. I'm not saying reject all rules and do everything in an anarchic way, but whatever you do, not lose sight of why we're doing that. Again, that's why Rupa Goswami say niyamagraha. And niyamagraha has two meanings. One is rejecting all rules in a very like whimsical way. I don't follow anything. No, nobody's saying that. But don't follow them without understanding their purpose and intention. No, don't become just like a cyborg, mechanically following everything. That's equally damaging than rejecting everything. So we want like the middle path. No? So so sometimes, of course, when we are in a situation when someone has a different orientation, let's put it that way, and we don't want to say all this to feel we are superior to those who are all into mechanical stuff, because we may not be totally free from that. Or if we've gone through that and we are on some level beyond that, we should be very compassionate and understanding of those who may be a little bit more trapped in that, or not trapped even, just they need to go through that. That's part of the process. And in some cases, yeah, we may need just to take some respectful distance or to avoid some conflict. Okay, I clean the remaining grain of rice, but without me going neurotic about it. Sometimes.
Because I think he was a very sweet person, so I took it even more serious because
Yeah.
it came from a sweet person.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, so there's a place to find some charm in that also. Okay, he's concerned, lovingly concerned about trying to have it as clean as possible for the Lord of his heart. No, it's possible to have that also. Someone that may the same thing can come from someone who is very superficially attached to the formula, or from someone who is deeply concerned with, let's have this as beautiful as possible for our beloved. No, you follow my point? It may be the same situation, but coming from a very different place. So in one case, submitting to that may be dysfunctional, and in some other, maybe like nourishing and inspiring. So we have to pay attention from where it's coming, as you are noticing. Oh, it came from a loving place. So okay, there's a place to. I submit to that loving place, and
Spent half an hour for this 5 coins of rice to get out. Well, thank you very much for your explanation and for reminding me of this verse. Do you have the verse number by any chance? This verse which says all the rules and regulations are always remember Krishna.
Yeah, I think that's from the Vishnu Purana. I can do a quick search here, no problem. Yeah, I always quote that verse. I mean, it's quoted in, for example, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Is it Padma Purana? Prabhupada is not given the exact number. We can look for that. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita is quoted, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 113. Yeah. Yeah. But it's from the Padma Purana original, but I don't have here the exact number. But yeah, that's one of my favorite verses when it comes to rules, because again, we can get so neurotic about rules. And there are endless rules. So you can feel like I'm never doing enough. It's like, but at the end of the day, it's not about following all that. All that is to help you to get to this point. So if you get to this point without following all that, that's great. You are fulfilling the actual purpose, because the ultimate rule is love, in one sense. Love is what rules you ultimately. So all rules should take to love. And when you love, you even can break all rules in the context of love. That's what the gopis do in Vrindavan, in one sense. They transgress so much that in any other situation, what they do is immoral. But they are doing all that in the context of the highest rule, which is love. So everything becomes justified. Nothing is immoral, it's transmoral. Again, we are not there, we cannot imitate, but that's an example of how, if love is there, all the other things are secondary considerations. And as long as love is not there, whatever other things are there should be for the sake of love. Yeah. And as there's a famous quote, I think by the Dalai Lama, he said, when you have followed the rule properly, you will know when to break it. So again, we are not here saying do not follow any rules, but when you properly follow the rule, properly means knowing the intention. At some point you may feel this way of doing things is suffocating now for my current stage. I need something more deep, more broad. So externally it seems you are breaking the rule, but just to embrace the spirit of that in a deeper way. So actually you're not breaking any rule, you're just fulfilling it more deeply. But if someone doesn't have the vision, they may say, "Oh, you're breaking the rule. You're not doing it according to the letter." But you may be following the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, literally. So, yeah. Okay. Something else?
Yeah, add something to that. There's
Please,
also a
okay.
lovely verse in the Srimad-Bhagavatam in the first canto. I think it's 1.5.17 where Narada Muni speaks to Vyasadeva, and he says, if someone neglects his prescribed duty and engages in the service of the lotus feet of Bhagavan Hari, but falls down before becoming perfect, what inauspiciousness can befall him?
Yeah.
On the other hand, if one is not engaged in the service of Bhagavan, but executes his prescribed duty, what does it gain?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a beautiful verse,
Yeah.
because it really shows what Krishna is after. And you can execute your daily duties to the perfection, but with no heart,
Mm-hmm.
you don't even feel happy about it, really, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's one of my go-to verses when it's getting a little harder.
Thank you. And the quotation is precise. It's Bhagavatam 1.5.17. So for those who want the reference, for the shloka lovers. Yeah. And there are so many similar verses like that in the Bhagavatam. So my point is, so many times the Bhagavatam tries to make the same point, because also it knows we can easily forget. So one time, after a few chapters, from another, with another words, the same thing, the same thing. Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask, the ultimate healthy level of devotion and service to Krishna. Of course, it's Shastra based, and if you're lucky and you have a guru, it's also he will help you along. But at the end of the day, is it an individual standard that each practitioner has to find for themselves to be able to feel that love towards Krishna?
Mm-hmm.
Because other people might give you a standard or some practices that just emotionally don't have any effect on you. You might do it out of duty, but and I'm not saying to do it on the lazy side. I do as little as possible and expect Krishna to love me endlessly for that.
No.
But if I do a certain amount and I fall asleep in love with Krishna, that must be a good sign. That must be.
Seems you're already knowing the answer to your own question.
No, I was just thinking about it when you were talking about
Yeah,
it before.
but you're making naturally getting to the obvious conclusion to the question.
Because I think that's what we're all after, really. If you have those moments and they keep you going, it's just how to hang on to those moments and to revisit them and relive them again and again. That's the
and as you were saying, Patrak, like again, there's only one way to practice bhakti. In the beginning, again, there may be this kind of, okay, you have to do this, and then you attain this. You just do follow the formula, don't overthink it, don't speculate. But then you start to study the tradition and you say, okay, there are so many ways of being a devotee, of a lover of God. Like to give an examples, Prahlad Maharaj gives these 9 expressions of bhakti. And he, Rupa Goswami, says you can attain perfection by engaging in one of any of them. Listening. Pariksit Maharaj was just listening, perfection. Sukadeva Goswami was speaking, he attained perfection. They were not doing, some others were doing more than one, perfection. Then Rupa Goswami gives 64 angas, limbs of bhakti. And he said you can attain perfection through any of them. Some of them are dancing. And he gives example. He gives the point, and then he gives Chandrakanti, this lady, she danced for Krishna with her whole heart for whole night, and after that night she went to Krishna. You follow my point? So there's no like you can only be a devotee in this way. You can attain Krishna by dancing. Again, this is not like as a way of evading or laziness, do not do this. I'm just dancing and that's it. But there are so many ways. Sanatana Goswami, that's too much. And now comes an extreme example. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, I quote that in my book. In one purport, Sanatana Goswami says, if you learned, fasten your seatbelt. He's speaking about Krishna being everywhere and his grace being everywhere. He says, if you learn to relate to a blade of grass properly, you attain all perfection. Because Krishna is in that blade of grass. If you relate properly to the blade of grass, all perfection is waiting for you there in that blade of grass. Again, generally, we don't conceive of our sadhana. Okay, I will practice relating to a blade of grass till attain perfection. But in principle, that's there. That possibility is there. So my point is, we have to be more broad-minded about the many ways we can relate to Krishna and attain perfection, and not just like, you have to wake up at this time, chant this number of rounds, do this, do that. Only then that happens. And everyone has a different nature, and everyone is in a different place. So what suits someone better may not suit that some other person better. And someone may feel, I feel my love for Krishna is increasing by whatever. And the other person may say, and for me, this is what mostly nourishes me. And there's no need to think which is correct and which is wrong. And probably they're all correct. If that's really happening. Again, if that's really happening, sincerity. Again, we are not here trying to cheat ourselves and create a new religion, but just honestly acknowledge what works for me. Because we just don't want to be doing something for a whole lifetime that we really clearly we know it's not working for me. So if it's not working, doesn't mean you need to reject it. As we say, it means maybe I'm having a wrong understanding. Maybe something's getting in the way. But in some cases, it's maybe that's not my my way of practicing bhakti. You follow my point? For some people, they love to worship the deities, and they will find everything's here. And some other people may do not worship deities and chant the name, and some other may. You follow my point? So there are so many ways, possibilities, right? And even at different stages of our journey, there may be different necessities also. So we have to, again, be introspective and attentive. What works for me today, tomorrow? There needs some adjustment and consulting with guru or friends or guides, and because we just don't want to continue doing it just mechanically and having some like blind hope. Well, but at the end of my life, Krishna somehow will pick me and throw me into Golok Vrindavan. That won't happen if you are not, getting there internally now. And I'm not saying that like, oh, Maharaj, you are too strict. Give that hope. But my point is, if you do not want that, Krishna is not that cruel that he will send you to a place you don't want to go voluntarily. You follow? If I'm not crazy about loving God in a particular way, in a certain way, I won't go there because I'm not choosing to go there. And love has to remain voluntary, right? So it's not like, no, but I'm just chanting my 16 round, following my 4 regulative principles. So at the end of this lifetime, I will go back to God. But if I don't want to go there, Krishna is not that bad that he will send you there. Right? Or if I even don't have still a clear, a clear picture of how do I want to love Krishna. It's not that I will be sent to Golok Vrindavan and then they will tell me there, okay, you are having ascribed to the Sakya Rasa department. You happen to be a friend of Krishna. Oh, thank you. All those things gradually develop as a sadhaka, as a practitioner here. And again, that may take lifetimes. It's fine, no rush. But yeah, it's not that I just do the whole thing mechanically in a very abstract way, and suddenly I'm there in Golok Vrindavan and they're letting me know who I am. And it's nothing. Yeah.
I started looking at it a little different. My morning sadhana, for example, in the last year or so. I wish I would be more focused on what I'm doing, but I see it more in a way now too that it's kind of my warm up for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Like I do, for example, my chanting verses and things like this. And then I open a book and then it's getting exciting because I might read something I haven't read before. So in that sense, I don't want to let go of it, regardless that my heart is not necessarily there 100% when I do my morning sadhana, but I still would feel guilty if I would neglect that, meaning I wouldn't be able to enjoy the reward, so to speak, to open up a book and learn something new.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's wrong or right, but that's where I am at the moment.
Yeah. And again, we should sometimes resist this idea of trying to label everything. So it's wrong or right. It's what it is. As long as you are sincere, again, right? There may be lots of sincere good stuff, and there may be still stuff that needs to. We are mixed bag, as they say. Oh, and it's fine. It's what it is. Yeah. Okay. Almost 2 hours. I don't want to take much more of your time. We'll continue maybe if you want, agree, which are later, and we need some time to process also, no? It's not just like sharing with, okay, so maybe you need to go for a walk, stretch a little bit, be with yourself. And thank you for those of you who connected in Zoom today. We have a few extended tribe here, and I'm seeing that you share so many comments and I didn't read any of them, so sorry for that. But I'm reading them now, and I appreciate them. So thank you for joining us, and we'll put the discussion to rest. And later today we will meet for circle sharing, so more private, and tomorrow morning we'll even more officially begin with the different sections of what is Anartha-nivritti, really, starting with discernment in love. What's bhakti, what's love, the practice, and what is not also. So thank you so much. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Jai, Vanchakalpataru Vista Kripa Sindhu Beva Chapti Tanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Antakoti